Behind every locked door lies a story the world was never meant to hear. Welcome to Behind Bars TV, where we uncover the hidden realities of the world's toughest prisons, untold inmate experiences, and the systems built to contain them. From supermax facilities to forgotten penitentiaries, we reveal the truth behind concrete walls and razor wire. This is not fiction. This is the world behind bars.
Where evil sleeps. It's called CECOT, the world's most secure prison. A fortress built not just to hold the violent, but to erase them. No sunlight, no sound, no second chances. They say this is where the most dangerous men on earth are buried alive, and where even fear obeys orders. The fortress that shouldn't exist. In 2022, the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, made a promise to end decades of gang terror that had turned his nation into one of the deadliest on earth. His solution wasn't reform. It was confinement, absolute confinement. At the height of El Salvador's gang crisis, the government launched the state of exception. In less than a year, over 75,000 people were arrested. Entire neighborhoods vanished overnight. But there was a problem. There was no place on earth built to hold that many enemies of the state. So, in secret, Bukele ordered the construction of a prison unlike anything the modern world had ever seen. CECOT, Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo. Built in just 7 months, CECOT stretches across 166 hectares, roughly the size of 300 football fields. It's guarded by 600 soldiers and 250 police officers, and surrounded by high-voltage fences, drones, and a wall so thick it could withstand artillery fire. This is not a prison, Bukele declared proudly. It's a city of control. But what no one realized was that this city would soon become a world unto itself. The war that built it. For decades, 2 gangs ruled El Salvador like shadow governments. MS-13 and Barrio 18. They controlled entire towns, collected taxes, and waged wars that left bodies in rivers and fear in every home. Bukele called them terrorists. To the world, they were symbols of chaos. So when he announced mass arrests, most Salvadorans cheered. But behind the applause, a new system was forming. One where the definition of a criminal began to blur. With due process suspended, anyone with tattoos, missing paperwork, or even a suspicious neighbor could be taken away, sometimes forever. In El Salvador today, said one human rights lawyer, it's safer to be invisible than innocent. CECOT wasn't built for justice. It was built for containment. A human vault, designed to erase crime by erasing the criminal. The design of total control. From the air, CECOT looks like a military base. From the inside, it feels like the end of civilization. The prison is divided into 8 massive cell blocks, each capable of holding 1,000 men. Every cell holds 100 inmates. No windows, no sunlight, no beds. Just metal slabs, 1 toilet, and 24-hour surveillance. There are no visits, no phone calls, no contact with the outside world, not even with lawyers. Cameras track every movement. Guards patrol in synchronized shifts. Even meals are automated, slid through steel doors on plastic trays. You don't speak here, said one anonymous guard. You exist. It's a system built not on rehabilitation, but submission. The psychology of fear. Inside CECOT, silence isn't discipline, it's policy. Every sound, every glance, every motion is controlled. The human mind isn't designed for total quiet. After days of isolation, prisoners begin to hallucinate. After weeks, their bodies adapt. Their posture collapses, their speech slows, their emotions flatten into survival instinct. It's a psychological blueprint called behavioral conditioning through deprivation. A method that replaces violence with obedience. We don't need to beat them, said a supervisor in an interview. The system does it for us. CECOT isn't just a building. It's a psychological experiment where human identity dissolves under the weight of routine and fear. The March of the Condemned. In early 2023, Bukele's government released a video that went viral instantly. 2,000 inmates, heads bowed, chained at the wrists, marched barefoot into CECOT. A sea of tattoos, symbols of past violence, now stripped of meaning. No music, no narration, just the sound of orders and obedience. The message was clear. El Salvador had declared victory. The video gained over 100 million views in days. Supporters called it justice. Critics called it a mass display of dehumanization. This isn't law enforcement, said a UN investigator. It's theater, and the world is watching. But to Bukele, that was the point. CECOT wasn't just a prison. It was a message. To gangs, to critics, and to every nation watching. Life inside the machine. At CECOT, time doesn't exist. Days and nights blur into one continuous command. The morning starts with metal and orders. At exactly 4 a.m., the lights blaze on. Guards march through the corridors in formation, boots echoing against concrete. Each cell's loudspeaker cracks to life. Hands on your head. Eyes down. Do not speak. There is no breakfast bell, no break, no yard time. Only ration trays, gray rice, cold beans, and water. Each inmate has 15 seconds to eat. When the lights dim, silence remains. No music. No books. No television. Only breath, heartbeat, and the grinding of steel. It's like living inside a stopwatch, said one ex-guard. Every second belongs to someone else. Inside this machine, humanity is not forbidden. It's simply unnecessary. The silence doctrine. CECOT's most brutal weapon isn't violence. It's silence. No talking. No whispering. No contact between prisoners. If a man speaks without permission, punishment is immediate, not by beating, but by isolation. One guard explained, "When you take away sound, you take away power. Silence breaks communication. Without communication, gangs can't organize. Without organization, rebellion dies before it begins." But the silence also destroys something else, the mind. Prison psychologists report inmates developing auditory hallucinations. Some begin whispering to walls or answering voices that don't exist. In total isolation, the brain becomes its own enemy. And that's exactly how CECOT maintains order. Not by fear of pain, but by fear of one's own thoughts. The propaganda factory. CECOT isn't just a prison, it's a stage. Every inch of it was built for visibility. When the first prisoners arrived, Bukele's media team was already there, drones, cameras, cinematic lighting. The government edited the footage like a movie trailer. Dramatic music, synchronized movements, and captions like "El Salvador is no longer afraid." Within days, the clips went viral across Latin America. Comment sections filled with praise. This is what justice looks like. Every country needs a Bukele. Finally, order. But behind the likes and hashtags lies a system of psychological warfare. The videos weren't made for inmates, they were made for the world. To show dominance. To create envy in nations still fighting crime. To make fear look efficient. Bukele's propaganda team calls it visual governance. Every prisoner kneeling becomes a political ad. Every silence becomes applause. You don't need to justify control, one advisor said. You just need to film it well. The eye that never sleeps. CECOT runs on surveillance. Thousands of cameras feed into a central control room that monitors every corridor, every cell, every breath. AI motion sensors track inmates' body language. Thermal cameras detect gatherings of more than 3 men. Every meal tray is scanned and counted before and after delivery. Even the guards are watched, their movements timed, recorded, and reviewed. "We used to patrol," said a veteran officer. "We used to patrol," said a veteran officer. "Now we observe." CECOT is the first prison where no one is free, not even the staff. Every shift, every order, every human decision is filtered through surveillance protocols. And the result? A facility where control is no longer a choice, it's an algorithm. The illusion of peace. Then, a quick cut to CECOT's floodlights glowing red against the mountains. Outside CECOT, El Salvador has changed. The streets are safer. Murders have dropped by nearly 60%. Tourism has tripled. The government calls it a miracle. But miracles have shadows. Thousands of families are still waiting for news of loved ones. People who vanished without trial. Inside the walls, records are sealed. Names are numbers. The system doesn't make mistakes, it erases them. Peace is easy to measure, says one journalist. You just stop counting the bodies. For now, El Salvador sleeps. The gangs are silent. The cities shine. But the silence outside is the same silence inside. And silence, if it lasts too long, doesn't mean peace. It means the whole country has learned to whisper. The man who stopped speaking. Inside CECOT, some men stop speaking, not by punishment, but by adaptation. One inmate, once a leader of MS-13, was known inside the gangs as El Pota. Before arrest, he commanded over 100 men. Now, he hasn't spoken in months. Guards say he sits for hours, staring at the wall, moving only to breathe. He used to scream during the first weeks, said a correctional officer. Now he just disappeared while still sitting there. Psychologists call this learned silence. When every sound brings punishment, the brain begins to believe that speech itself is danger. It's not insanity, it's self-defense. CECOT's system doesn't just cage bodies. It edits people. It rewrites behavior, emotion, and memory, until all that's left is stillness. The vanishing prisoners. Officially, every inmate in CECOT is accounted for. But unofficially, stories are leaking out of disappeared prisoners. Families of men who were transferred say they never received confirmation of where their relatives went. Requests for visitation are denied. Phone numbers lead nowhere. A leaked internal report from 2024 listed 12 administrative removals, prisoners who no longer appear in the active registry. When questioned, authorities called it a clerical error. But even guards whisper otherwise. One anonymous officer told a journalist, "When someone stops existing on paper, we call it the clean erase." Bodies never leave the facility publicly. Some say they're buried under the compound. Others believe they're transferred at night to unknown sites. In CECOT, disappearance isn't just death. It's the final form of control, to erase a man so completely that even his absence becomes invisible. The faith of the guards. The guards at CECOT live under their own kind of confinement. Weeks without sunlight. Shifts lasting 36 hours. Orders to never look an inmate in the eye. They are told they are soldiers of God, protectors of peace in a war against evil. Some believe it. Others just pretend to. One officer, interviewed anonymously, said, "We were trained to think of them as demons. But after a while, you start seeing demons everywhere, even in yourself." Some guards have developed rituals. Praying before entering the blocks. Burning incense in their quarters. Avoiding mirrors because the eyes of the inmates stay with you. Bukele's speeches call them heroes. But behind closed doors, they are haunted by screams, by silence, and by the question they can never ask out loud. What if the evil we're fighting lives in the system itself? The families left outside. Every morning, lines of mothers, wives, and sisters gather outside CECOT's gates. They hold pictures of men who vanished in the wave of mass arrests. Some wait for hours under the sun, hoping for a name on a list, a letter, anything. Most go home with nothing. "They say my son is inside," said one woman. "But how can he be alive if no one has seen him?" Human rights groups call it mass incarceration without record. The government calls it justice. When asked about the families, Bukele responded simply, "They didn't cry when the gangs ruled. Why cry now?" For the families, CECOT isn't just a prison. It's a black hole, a place that swallows sons and gives back silence. And still, many Salvadorans defend it. Because for the first time, the streets are quiet. And quiet, to a country raised on chaos, feels like peace. The Church of Control. In 2025, Bukele declared victory in his war against terror. He said El Salvador was now the safest country in the Americas. The speech wasn't political, it was religious. He called CECOT a temple of redemption. He said its silence was the sound of peace. And when the cameras cut to the crowd, they weren't just clapping, they were worshiping. Bukele had turned punishment into a national faith. He became both president and prophet, a man who promised not salvation in heaven, but order on earth. They traded democracy for deliverance, said one foreign journalist. And they did it willingly. In El Salvador today, questioning CECOT is seen as betrayal. Critics are labeled defenders of crime. And the walls of the prison stand not just as concrete, but as the country's new religion, control. The world starts watching. In early 2024, the world couldn't stop watching. El Salvador's government released a new video. 7,000 prisoners, heads bowed, lined up shoulder to shoulder. A synchronized march of submission under blinding lights. The footage went viral overnight. Hundreds of millions of views. Thousands of comments. Half the world cheered. Half the world gasped. Bukele fixed crime. This looks like fascism. We need this in my country. It was more than just a video. It was a mirror. To nations drowning in crime and chaos, CECOT looked like salvation. To those who still believed in human rights, it looked like a warning. International leaders began to visit. From Honduras, Ecuador, and Kenya, delegations toured the fortress. They took notes, posed for photos, and praised Bukele's new model of order. The Bukele model, said one African minister, is what every broken nation dreams of. And so began the export of fear, packaged, branded, and sold as peace. The business of security. CECOT wasn't just a prison, it was a prototype. Soon, companies connected to El Salvador's government began consulting with foreign nations. Blueprints, architecture plans, and logistics manuals were offered under new names. Mega containment facilities. Bukele's government began to export not just the idea, but the technology of obedience. Biometric scanners, AI surveillance systems, prisoner tracking chips. All rebranded as tools of modernization. Contracts worth hundreds of millions flowed in. Security became the country's new export. We used to export coffee, said one Salvadoran economist. Now we export control. CECOT had become profitable. Fear had entered the free market, and nations desperate for peace were lining up to buy it. The truth inside the walls. In 2025, a leaked report shook El Salvador. A former CECOT guard who escaped and fled to Costa Rica released hidden footage recorded from his uniform camera. It showed images the public had never seen. Inmates collapsing from exhaustion. Cells flooded with waste due to broken toilets. Prisoners punished with starvation rations for disobedient posture. A morgue filled with unclaimed bodies marked unidentified. The footage was authenticated by human rights observers. The government dismissed it as fake news. But for many Salvadorans, the illusion cracked. The world's safest country suddenly looked like a nation built on hidden graves. The whistleblower's final message went viral. We built a place to bury crime. But we ended up burying truth. The price of peace. El Salvador streets are peaceful now. Gang graffiti is gone. Markets are open. For the first time in a generation, people can breathe. But peace in Bukele's El Salvador comes with a quiet cost. Tens of thousands remain imprisoned without trial. Entire communities have lost their men. Critics and journalists are under surveillance. Even social media posts questioning the government can lead to arrest. You can't argue with safety, says one Salvadoran journalist. You can only ask, what did we sacrifice for it? Bukele's approval rating remains above 90%. For many, that number is proof that fear works better than faith. But history has a cruel memory. Empires built on silence eventually crumble under the weight of truth. And someday, when the lights of CECOT dim, the question that will echo across the world won't be, was it worth it? It will be, who will build the next one? The future of control. There's a story told among the guards of CECOT. They say that at night, when the lights flicker, you can hear the faint sound of chains, even in empty corridors. Not because someone's there, but because the system never sleeps. CECOT was built to eliminate fear. Instead, it industrialized it. It turned silence into policy, obedience into pride, punishment into identity. And now the blueprint is spreading to other nations, other leaders, other prisons. They built the perfect cage, says a human rights activist. And soon, every country will want one. The camera lingers on the prison one last time. Quiet, massive, immovable. A place where evil sleeps. And so does justice.
What you just saw is more than a story. It's a reality lived by thousands behind bars. If you believe in uncovering the truth, the kind hidden behind concrete walls and silence, then join us. Subscribe to Behind Bars TV and never miss a chapter in the world's most dangerous stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and remember, freedom and confinement are sometimes only a wall apart.